Okay. DCS Mission Editor How-To. Today we're going to cover the DCS Mission Editor. Everybody knows it. A lot of people can find it frustrating. Others can find it useful. Others are really good using scripting and whatnot. But here what we're going to do is we are going to concentrate on just what is available. Okay, so we're going to concentrate on this mission. We've flown it on Wingman Finder. Actually, last night we flew it. We were about 8 people, and we actually completed it. We managed to stop the entire armored assault. So, as you're looking at it right now, everything is just what you would present to the end user. You wouldn't want to put the triggers up there. You don't want to, spoil the surprises and whatnot that's going to happen. So right now we're going to cover the editor again, like I said, and let's go over all the icons on the left real quick here for those that might not be familiar with it. First one is create new mission. Next one is open file. So if you're working on a previous one or whatnot, you would open the file there. Here is to save it. If you have not saved it, it will prompt you for a name. This is the to create the mission briefing, and you come here and you can just specify. This is what will show up to the players. The briefing images panel is where you can put screenshots. So like if you want to get all fancy and make it like, reconnaissance or images of the target, whatever, you can put them in there. Just note that those get wrapped up into the hi guys, yeah, I can see the chat, so won't be interacting too much there, but you guys can go ahead and ask me questions with regards to, whatever I'm covering. Getting back to the briefing images panel, if you add images there, that will make your image, your mission file larger. So keep that in mind. Same thing goes for any sound files that you may include and whatnot. Okay, next one, we're going into the create weather conditions. That is also actually where you set the mission time and the season time. So right now, like the Battle of Kutaisi, this mission, it will have, it's set to October 14, 2019 at 1700 hours. That is 5 o'clock. I would recommend that you guys use, I think it's timeanddata.com or timeanddate.com, and you can actually type in the location wherever you're designing your mission, and you can, see where the sunrise is, sunset, whether there's a full moon, because when you make missions with a full moon, you might want to see when it actually rises and when it sets, or when it's like, high moon. Then you got weather. Static is the most commonly used. You got dynamic, which is really weird. I've played around with it. I've read about it. To get really interesting, if at all, weather effects, you have to, the winds will end up being extremely bad. So you'll have a lot of crosswinds and a lot of the airfield. It's really not worth it. So static is where you want to mess around with. Let's see. It could not detect some. You're saying you saw a weird bug with the images panel. It could not detect some of the JPEGs I created. It's possible. I've only used PNG formats, so I haven't tried any of the other image formats. That's going back to adding images to the mission. Okay, so weather. The weather, as you're going to be familiar with this mission later, I will upload it so that way you can download it, play it, share it with your buddies, whatever. The base is 8,000 feet. Thickness is about 1700 feet. The density is 9. With 9, you can it'll start actually adding thunderstorms, for example. Um, with 9, you will also get God rays, that kind of effect. Also, if the sun is higher, whatnot. 10 is full overcast. That is, you won't get any God rays at all. You can mess around with the pressure, air pressure, and then add wind at different strata, whatnot. I think it's not tied to the specific altitude. It's like plus minus as well. If you want to make it really interesting at low altitudes, you might want to add a little bit of wind as well. Turbulence. If you don't like your players, add turbulence. It makes for some fun flying, and so on and so forth. And then you got your default weather patterns for a set season. Obviously, if you're in October, you're not going to select a summer uh, default. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, we got the triggers. This is the part that I'll cover more extensively. As you can see, I have a lot of triggers. Okay, then we have define mission goals. Be honest, I have not messed with that. You can do like scores, like I think specific targets can have values. So if you hit it, it will start keeping score, and you can see that in your briefing page. So when you're doing multiplayer, or like I want to turn this mission into a PvP, you can have the red side and the blue side, and it'll keep tabs. Okay, let's see. Okay, commander, battlefield commanders. It's pretty interesting. Not a lot of players have combined arms. It's actually a lot of fun. I've done missions way in the past that folks can do surface-to-air missile batteries. They can control SAMs or AAA. Again, that is correct. Flags can have values in that as well. All right. Let's see. What else do we got here? Okay, set mission options. Okay, mission options. This is where you can enforce specific functions to the mission. Notice that it has a value on the far right with a check mark. That is what is set for my personal use. So that will happen if I check that. Permit crash recovery. I think by default, so it will carry over what I have from myself, external views as well. If I had that unchecked for myself, nobody would be able to have external views. I've actually seen it happen that way. F10 view options. As you can see, you can minimize it, create a fog of war on the F10 map. Might be useful for some designers if you want to keep things, secret. Random system failures. That could be fun as well. I haven't seen it done in missions yet by anybody. Might be useful in the future. Padlocking. I don't know who's using padlock nowadays with Track IR and VR. Unlimited fuel, unlimited weapons. Those are good for training missions. So that way with the unlimited weapons, you can load them up, and it's really cool. You go drop your bombs, and I think within 30 seconds they reappear on your pylon. So you can just keep on practicing, like, dropping bombs, launching Mavericks, whatever. Radio assists. I can't remember exactly what it was. Tool tips is like, you hover over stuff in your cockpit or whatever. Immortal, if you're going to keep the players immortal, I believe it is. Labels, notice I use dot only. So that will carry over into the mission by default, and I can enforce that. And let's see, then game flight mode, that's the toned down flight model. Civilian traffic, I have it set to low. I like to see some life in the world there. GFX, I use simulation. And if I don't check anything here, it will default to what the client has, I believe, on their side. That's rendered locally. The mini HUD, that's good for certain aircraft, whatnot. Bird strikes, I have it set to 0. I've never tried it. Maybe I have tried it a while back, but I've never hit any bird. I've never actually seen birds. Actually, no, that's not true. Near the ports, you will see like seagulls and whatnot. Cockpit visual recon mode. To be honest with you, I Don't know what that is. I don't know if anybody else does. If you do, by all means, put it in the chat channel. F10 map user marks. You know what? Somebody was actually talking about that over at Hagen, and they were saying that they couldn't see it. Okay, so Sledge is saying unlimited ammo is good for training. However, if using laser weapons, you need to re-enter the laser codes when you deplete your initial stores. I wouldn't doubt it. It probably resets to, like, you know, the default 1688. Very, very true. But then again, it builds muscle memory. You know, I mean, you got to think, oh, I got to punch in a code again. So whatever. But it's true. Thanks. All right, and everything else are overlays and whatnot. The battle damage assessment, I have it disabled. It's very arcadey, all that kind of stuff. Okay, all these icons here is to add aircraft, the individual stuff, so on and so forth. So if you add something, there it appears. By default, it's always using USA, CAS, A10. Always remember, you can change it. We'll cover that briefly here. Let me delete that here real quick. Static objects. It depends on what country. If it's on the blue side, it will show up blue. If it's on the red side, it'll show up red. Same thing when you're adding the special effects. The special effects don't really matter. What's funny is, like, the special effects here. Whoa, zoomed in too fast. Like an explosion or whatever, it shows up blue because I just left it by default on US. I wish for special effects or things of that nature they would give you an option for, like a gray option. That could be useful. See, initial point objects. Somebody was saying that the initial point object was more for the A10. I did a little bit of research on it, and the only info I found out was like way back in 2011, 2012, when people were doing a lot of the A10 stuff. So I haven't really applied that. Then let's see what we got here. Okay, the bullseye location, red and blue. You can actually find them here. Here is the blue, and I think the red, I have it way over here. I can bring it closer. Let's see, then, okay, this is the triggers. This is how you will create a trigger. So you mark it, says new trigger zone, different colors, up to you. You can name the trigger. I would recommend naming the trigger. Okay, all right. This shows you all the stuff that's in the map. Right now it's all hidden. Since we're here, we are going to unhide everything, so that way we start seeing where everything is. As you can see, there is a lot of stuff, damage and so on, right? So we're not going to do the statics, we're just going to put the vehicles in the aircraft. Again, this is twofold. You as a mission designer, if you add a lot of stuff, it's going to start getting cluttered. So hidden works for you. But it also serves a purpose. If you do not hide the surface-to-air missile batteries, they will show up in people's SA. If you do hide them, they will not show in the SA. Whether or not that's by design, I don't know. If anybody knows, by all means put it in the chat. But it might be good, like for example, the SA is built on, you know, sensors data. That's how it's piped into your data, your Link 16. So if it's there, you'll know about it. If it's not there, then it's a surprise, right? But theoretically, it should populate, because if you got your radar warning receiver or somebody picks it up, that data is then transmitted over the Link 16, the data link stuff that's combined arms, and you should still see it, but maybe that's the way it works. I don't know. So as you can see, we have a lot of stuff going on there. Okay. Now check this out. Oops, sorry. This one. These are all my trigger zones. By default, I have them hidden. I don't want the players to see the triggers. When I see missions and I dissect missions of other players, and I see the triggers, I'm there like, well, I can just not fly in there and avoid something happening, right? This is you. This is you designing the mission and surprising. This is your element of surprise for the mission. So you toggle them off, and there you have all the triggers. There's a lot going on. Notice how they're all named. Everything is named here. Well, not everything. Not quite everything. Like, let's start with Armored Column Group 1. These are the first guys to start. I named them. I don't name the individual units unless they have a specific function. If they have a specific function that I want to keep tabs on, I will actually name that unit, because what's really important when you go to the triggers, okay, notice how under the triggers it says okay, looking at the chat here, okay, question is, how are you removing the hidden status? Let's see, from that menu, yes, the hidden status, you go to, quick question, somebody just type yes or no, is the video playback delay to the voice? I don't know, because I'm not watching myself, obviously. So to answer Sledge's question, on the far left-hand side, right, to unhide the objects, the one right above the X, and I don't even know why they don't put the X towards like the bottom or something. It should be, anyways, right above here, that's where everything is located. You'll see all the groups, and you can specify which ones, and just, okay, thanks, Hornet Driver. Okay, so you select what you want to see and what side you want to see. In this case, we're dealing with everybody. So you can select, okay, so Armored Column 1, watch, he'll disappear. Boom, see, he disappeared here. So now, if I want to find him again really quick, let's say he's not there, whatever, I'm like, okay, where is he at? Go back here, and they'll show hidden. The only thing you have to do is double click on any, usually the top one, or any of them actually. Boom, and they pop up again. So it's that status here. So you can hide and unhide on the map here, obviously, but if you're looking for a particular one after you hid everything, you go to the general page here and you look them up. Right now, everything is not hidden. So, very, very important. One thing that I like to share with everybody is when you are going to design a mission, the map is your canvas, okay? You're the painter. You're going to decide, hey, what would be a cool place to, you look around and say, okay, what kind of mission do I want? And in this case, it's a CAS mission with armored columns advancing, right? So this is probably a cool place. I like making CAS missions there, but you can make some really cool CAS missions over here. I have one that I have been working on that's like an amphibious assault. Marines, so you have, ships launching cruise missiles, hitting with targets while you have Marine choppers going in and everything. You can do anything. So what I recommend is look at the map and think, okay, what mission do I want to make? And if it's air to ground, then start writing down, okay, what is it that I want to accomplish? What's going to happen? And jot down, okay, red, blue side, right? Armored. Now, armored columns, I remember last night some folks were saying, okay, what do these guys have, right? Well, I don't really follow the order of battle of the old Soviet Union or current Russia. I mean, it could make for some real cool play. But in this case, I put them on here. They're on road, armored, and the first vehicle, always put the direction you want them to, because if not, something really weird happens. If it's facing the other way and you start adding other vehicles, they start lining up in the wrong direction. Okay, so the first vehicle, point them in the direction that they're going to be traveling, and then as you add additional vehicles, they will line up behind him, also facing the same way. If not, they're going to have to do 180, and it takes forever, and it can become a cluster. Again, each one of those inside the convoy can have a separate skill level, and you'll notice as I click through them, And the reason a lot of those BMPs are average, because as you all know, they fire, and they sometimes fire better than the AAA. And then amongst them, boom, there's a Shilka air defense. So this guy's tagging along with them, so they're taking their own AAA with them. Sometimes I like to do a AAA group and have them off to the side and different, locations moving at the same speed, and actually you can have them follow the convoy if you wanted to. So that way it would be more like what the Russians would have done. They would have had the armored units and then had the air defenses on the periphery doing their thing. Okay. Another thing that I like to do in this mission, I put all that right there, all these white with that yellow guy. That is actually what I call the FIBA SAM AAA units. So it adds like an area defense stuff. It's always nice to just spread it out. Sometimes, you can surprise people. All right. So how you create your units, name them. Okay. Armored Column Group 1. Here is Armored Column Group 2. This is 3. And then way up here I have 4. And then last night, before we started that mission, I added these guys. And it's more like it was a decoy. So you wouldn't know which one to actually have to strike at first. Okay. Because that guy, actually, if you see, it just stops right there. It does not go all the way to what I call the defeat zone over here. All right. Triggers. Well, actually, let's get back to the armored column. I'm sorry. Okay, armored column. Check this out. Starting point. Okay, that's where they will start. Advanced waypoint actions. That's something that a lot of folks kind of ignore, or they may not know exactly. First rule: the order matters. So you want to put rule of engagement first, so on and so forth. I've noticed that the order does matter. Okay. Armored columns don't have as much as air objects, and ships have even less. I think they're just like armored columns. So rules of engagement. Let's edit so you see the options. Rule of engagement, right? Set option. Weapon free, but then they have other options. Return fire. Weapon hold. Weapon free. That's, in this case, they're on the offense. They're going to start using their weapons, whatever. Okay. Set option, disperse under fire. A lot of folks really like this yesterday. I think the default is like 120 seconds. Okay. Yeah, it's 120 seconds, but that will change for this convoy as it moves forward. Watch. Okay, so we are waypoint, starting waypoint. Okay. Waypoint 2, when they get over here, when they're making that loop to get to this first trigger, notice I put disperse under fire off. Okay, it is unchecked. They will not disperse under fire. They will keep on going. So they hunker down. Let's see in the next one. Nothing, 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 and they just keep going. Okay, so after waypoint 2, they become like drones. They're not going to care if you're dropping bombs on them. Okay, these guys, I did something similar. Disperse under fire 120, and then they keep coming forward. And actually, I left them at that. Let's see, there was another one. Okay, these guys. These are more elite. You can represent more elite groups. Okay. Only 60 seconds dispersal. You can, I think you can set 1 second, so it's kind of stupid. I mean, you drop a bomb, they kind of separate for a second, they're already regrouping. More realistically would be like 60 seconds. You know, everybody hits to the weeds, and then when the attack's over, they regroup. So with 60 seconds, it's a lot faster. You'll see them spread out a bit, and immediately they're regrouping and keep on going. Here's the catch. Every time you hit the convoy, so if you do you have to cause damage for them to disperse. And every time you hit them, they will disperse. Okay, so that's why if you keep the pressure on them, you can actually slow them down. If you don't hit them, you don't cause damage or whatnot, they just keep on going. Okay, so it's pretty cool. I mean, if you have two A-10s doing their circle of death, right? Going in, strafing, hitting one, boom, they're dispersing. The next guy comes in, boom, you hit him. It's always resetting, so you hunker them down. Okay. All right, and then alarm state is always good to add. Red state means that those guys are actively scanning for targets. They will be watching the skies. They will be aware of you, so on and so forth. If you leave them on, I think the default is auto. And auto, I think it will, like if you attack, I think they go red. I don't know exactly what auto is, because I want to tell them what state to be in. Red meaning you're going to be active, you're going to combat. Green is maybe I don't want them shooting back, so on and so forth, and just be as passive as possible. And that's usually a good thing to use with ships as well. Okay. All right, so very important. Name them. Very important. Second, if you want to name a specific unit, like I did back here for the HQ, and the reason I named them, okay, not for that guy, but this guy, 1, 2, see HQ 1, 1, 1, 4, all that. The reason I name it, again, it's also to know what these things are, right? Okay, what is that? Okay, well, I know it's the HQ, whatever, Russian HQ, but you got individual ones, right? Well, here, let's go to real quick to the trigger. Look at the victory. So, once, right? Victory, no event. I have never used event, actually. Anyways, group alive less than 50%, and notice group, I put Russian HQ. That's why you want, and then you put your triggers and what happens. Here's another thing. This is the trigger that everybody saw last night. The HQ was detected part of the coalition, so red is in HQ1, and then what happens is I start activating the Russian HQ. That's why you want to name them. That's why it makes it a lot easier to write those triggers. Okay, so we covered one of the columns. The column is moving along here. You see waypoint 1, waypoint 2. This is actually the first trigger that they kick in, and triggers can be any size. Okay, another sledge says if you take out the first unit that was placed down on the map, then add others to it, does the AI column still move to the next waypoint? First unit, like if you had a column and you take out the first unit, I think you delete the entire column. So the first unit is actually the one that controls the entire group. So that's why when you design like something like this FIBA SAM, okay, notice I have a total of 20 units that's part of this dispersed group, right? And I actually hit the right one. He's number 1. Watch this. If I hit him, everything moves. Okay. Now, if I hit, let's say number 7, well, let's get this guy's, okay, he's way down here. If I move him, only he moves. Okay, so the first guy you really can't delete, because if I hit delete on that, it's going to take out that entire group. And they don't have any waypoints, but it doesn't really matter. It will delete the entire group. Hope that answers your question there. Okay, getting back to the triggers. The triggers can be any size. They can be really, really small. Like, for example, if maybe for a laser guided scenario, right? So you drop a bomb and you call it LGB, and so then you can set a trigger when laser bomb falls within this area, whatever, then triggers activity. So group 1 comes in. When they cross this part, not the X, this part, that's when the trigger kicks in. That's when you see that moment stutter and everybody knows that something happened, right? I hope eventually DCS fixes that, because that kind of says, uh-oh, something happened. What happened? Well, in this case, the trigger is rather interesting. So let's see. Let's look at the trigger. This is the first trigger. And triggers are pretty straightforward. By the way, guys, within the DCS main install, under your document folder, there is the manual. There is the user manual for DCS, and it's like 200 some odd pages long. It does cover a lot of these things, so I would recommend reading them and referencing them. They'll go into more details. All this is practice. Let's see, didn't write that very well. If you're in game and destroy the first unit that was placed down, just let's see here. If you're in game and you destroy the first unit that was placed down, just yeah. Oh, okay, gotcha now, Sledge. Yes, if you hit the first unit in the column, they will still keep going. Yes, it does not matter. Yeah, exactly. They will keep on going. Just because you hit the first guy does not mean that the column's going to stop. Now you can do something. You can set a condition, non-trigger. Okay, it's not going to be a trigger, but you can set a condition. You can say new, and let's just say test, right? And the new condition would be, let's see, unit dead. Okay, unit dead, and then you specify the unit. And notice, you see all that stuff? See what happens? If you don't name them, you're like, oh crap, which one was that BMP that's leading column, so on, and I don't know what, I would have to go and look for it. But if he's named, so let's say it's this guy, right? Then you can get creative and say, okay, if this guy is dead, then you can go in here, group AI off. So let's say he's part of that group, armored column group 1, unit dead. Let's say that's a BMP, the first one, right? The leader, the commander. You kill him, and then what happens is that it gives an AI signal to shut down that convoy. Yeah, you could do it if you set it under a condition. So let's delete that rule. Because everything with triggers does not necessarily tie into a trigger within the map itself. It can be a condition, like we were just talking about answering Sledge's question. So let's just for giggles and grins here, let's recap here. So let's say this guy, and let's say he's called Unit 01. No, we're going to call him Lead BMP Group 1. Okay, so now he actually has a name. So now you come in here, trigger, new, Group 1 lead, however you want to call it. It's just to give you an idea, you know, what does that thing do? And you say new, and it says, okay, unit. Actually, you can even probably say unit damaged, right? But let's say, okay, he gets, unit is dead, and let's group, here he is, and whatnot. And what we say is group AI off, and they will shut down. Of course, the players should know that, because then everybody's going to be concentrating on the first one, right? But it would be like a cool thing, right? You're flying the mission, all of a sudden somebody just bags that guy, and they just stop, and somebody's going to say, hey, they're not moving anymore. What? Cool, awesome. You know, you can build anything you want. Obviously, you'll have to test it. Okay, getting back to the other triggers. So I know that Hornet Driver wanted to see how those, okay, so check this out. This one is a timed one, all right? Time more than 1500. 1500 is actually, I think it's 20 or 25 minutes. I think it's 20 minutes, something like that. So from the start of the mission, 1500 seconds later, boom, it kicks in, right? So this is something, again, that's timed based, not based on a trigger here. This kicks off, and they get a mission message, sorry. And this is how I marked all those sites, Hornet. You got a smoke marker. Notice that it says marker 1. Then I got marker 2, 3, and 4, right? Well, that's what these guys are. Marker 3, marker 1, 5. Those are the bridges. Those are the Thanks, Edlo. Yeah, I thought it was 20 or 25. Yeah, 25 minutes. You're correct. So again, it goes by seconds. I really wish that they would, give you an option instead of seconds to, I don't know, minutes. Uh, it, it's just something that would make it easier for people to understand, because now you're taking out your calculator and you got to say, okay, I want this in 20 minutes, and you know. So, so that's how you put the markers. Actually, I can make them a lot smaller. I just make them big because that way, you see what happens when you zoom out. But realistically, it happens within this area, and I think that's the area of illumination for that will happen. I can make them larger, and I think the illumination area is even larger. Okay, so again, what I'm telling him is, okay, just to help folks find them, right? The bridges, each bridge has the marker on them or near them. So I dump a white phosphorus. You can make any color you want. And you got the illuminating bomb. Altitude, very important. If you leave it at 1, you're not going to see it. It's going to be in the ground. Even if it's like 5 meters, I think it's in meters, you better give it some height. So that way it's viewable by the player. And then, so that's how I did the illumination. And then I activate the column number 3 and 4. So those guys start racing towards their objectives. So 3 and 4 are, let's see, this guy up here and this guy down here. 2 doesn't move until it actually hits this guy, all right? So the reason I wanted to give it a different flavor, I wanted 3 and 4 to kick in, because if the players are doing a really good job at keeping this guy back, guess what? He's never going to reach that, and this guy's never going to activate. If I would have tied those guys in, same way. You kill one column, nothing else happens. So this guy and the other column are set to time. Totally different. Again, they don't have to be tied to the triggers. To a time is a lot better. And I throw in the first Russian strike group, air, and again I named them. So RUS strike group 2. So like for example, here's one of the strike groups. Oh, that's strike group 2. Okay, you see them. So what I do, let's talk about these guys. They're doing ground attack. That will determine what their default loadouts are. Okay, as you well know, when you hit, okay, what are they going to be doing? Well, first of all, believe it or not, if you select, so we have MiG-27s, ground attack aircraft. If I were to select something that does intercept that MiG-27s don't do, it will, you'll lose that. It'll replace it with something that can do your requirement. Okay, so MiG-27, he's ground attack. I keep him at good, maybe high. But average and good, actually, they behave a little bit better. They don't do that vertical pirouetting. They don't do any of that weird stuff that the AI is known for. They don't do, UFO flying. If you set up excellent, yeah, that they'll do just about anything. So keep them good, keep them, high, and then also be creative, right? This is a section of 4 aircraft. Not all of them are going to be elite pilots. So maybe the lead is good, but then maybe, okay, I made them all good here, but I usually mix and match. And I'll just say, okay, like the lead's good, his wingman's good, and then the rest are just, boneheads that are just flying along. Notice it says late activation, because I'm going to trigger that off with a trigger, which I showed you. Okay, same thing here. Turning point and flyover point. As I understand it, and based on the, actually the manual talks about it. So the flyover point, think of it as, so they'll fly, so think about, they're flying towards that flyover. After they pass it, then they kind of start making their turn to their next one. It's not so rigid, that's what I gathered from what I've read and whatnot. So flyover point or turning point. A turning point is a specific turning point. Okay, it's not like a 10-degree turn or something like that. No, it's much more abrupt. Altitude, very important. because it depends on where they're flying. As you see, the height of this area. Okay, let's see here. Well, they'll start here, right? So right underneath them, down here, you have your altitude. It'll show you the altitude. Okay. Their initial speed. Now, all this is not for that. It's actually what it will have going into waypoint 1. Same thing with the advanced waypoints. The advanced waypoints kick in, so every time they hit that, this activates. Okay, and my understanding is that they have to pass the waypoint. They actually have to, like, they can't skip a waypoint. If they did not pass it, then they will not get those values. That is why the starting point, which is where they originate, I give them those values. Because if they get to waypoint 1 and they get distracted, or they don't get to waypoint 1 yet, and that's when all these values were to kick in, they wouldn't have them. So you want to prep them at the very beginning. And again, this also applies. Order does matter. And for aircraft, in this case, since they're going to be a strike package, right, and they're triggered, I want them coming in and be ready. So again, weapon free, reaction to threat. Okay, let's edit that to see, look at the options, okay? So notice it says number, it's number 2. You can change it. Obviously, this value will change depending if you go up or down, or you can move them here if you want. You can name them if you want as well. Again, you see what it says, name of the action in Mission Editor, just like a helper. Okay, well anyways, so reaction to threat. All those things cause the AI to do different things. So if they were to fire and you say no reaction, you're going to shoot them out of the sky like a bunch of ducks. You know, boom, 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 they're going to go down. They're not going to do anything. Passive defense, they will dump flares. I believe it is ECM. Well, actually, no, because you specify ECM later, and I'll show you. Evade fire is physically evading fire, so if tracers are coming up at them, they're going to be like, okay, they're going to start doing that. Evasive vertical maneuver, I think that's what the AI does by magic. We all hate it because it's completely unrealistic. Allow the aborting of the mission, that means that they dump their ordnance and they hightail it out of there. Here's another one. Horizontal AAA fire evade. I don't use that because I don't know if it will overrule their behavior towards the SAMs. Because it says AAA, it's very specific, so I don't know. So just evade fire. Chaff and flare using. Well, never use them. Used against fired missiles. My understanding is that the default is this. Used when flying in a surface-to-air missile weapon engagement zone. So what they will do is that they will waste flares that way. Because if they're flying through an actual engagement zone, so let's say, okay, you see the red circle around this SAM unit? That's an engagement zone. So if this plane were to fly from here to here, it has to cut through. So that tangent that it's flying through, it's going to be dumping flares and chaff all the way through it. It's just a waste. You know, and maybe you leave the AI without any chaff or flares and they become vulnerable. So I just set it to use against fired missiles. And then that's when they start, you know, dumping their flares and chaff. Formation. Here's a good one if you want to, you know, for if you're video, you know, recording or whatever, you know, make them look cool, like the bad guys just showed up, or you want to have them in a trail formation. So on the radar, they may bunch up and they may show up as one bogey. You can do that. Have them in a trail formation and then have them real close. Echelon left. I don't use this stuff. I don't know if it applies to DCS modern aircraft. It's possible. But anyways, it's up to you how you want to do this. So again, it takes effect after they pass the waypoint. So let's say at the beginning of the mission, they're in echelon right. But then when they're further down the mission, let's say it's an air intercept and they're MiG-21s, MiG-31s, they go line abreast from each other and make them open or close or whatever. And then you're basically wingtip to wingtip, right? So the aircraft are side by side, so they can do their missile engagement without getting in their way and whatnot. But you have to give them time between the different waypoints to get into position, because if you go from a trail to line abreast, well, that guy in the very, very back has to speed up to get into a line abreast formation, and if you put the waypoints really close to each other, they're not going to do it. I mean, not in time. Okay, RTB on bingo fuel, I believe it's on by default when you select that. That's a good value. Unfortunately, notice you cannot tell it to say, like, for example, because these guys, I'm assuming they're either flying from Tbilisi or they're flying from way up here, right? So I would like to say, okay, you RTB on bingo fuel, and I would like to have a value. I would like to say maybe 20% fuel load or something like that. That would be really cool, because I don't know when that bingo fuel would be for that aircraft. For all I know, it could be 0. RTB on out of ammo. You can specify. So these guys are MiG-27s. They're coming in with rockets. You can tell. You can say, okay, when you run out of rockets, and notice it says rocket, and you got subcategories: light rockets or heavy rockets. I don't know what type of rockets they are. Just say, okay, you run out of rockets, go home. Okay. Now I think I left it as all, and the reason is because those guys might turn around and still use their weapons, cannons. They do carry those Gatlin 23. Okay, Sledge has a comment here. The bomber options does work, especially if you want to have a large formation. Yep. With the World War II stuff, yes, that is correct. That's DCS, ED actually had to add that, implement it to get the proper carpet bombing. But actually, you can do carpet bombing with B1s and B2s with the bomb map object or location. It's really fun. It does work. Okay, back to this. ECM using. This is another one. If they have ECM capabilities, some aircraft have ECM internally. Others need to have the external pods loaded, because if they don't have that external pod loaded, obviously this isn't going to work. All right. So you have to be aware of what their loadout is. And in this case, these guys don't have any ECM pods. See? Bombs, they don't have anything, and even if over here they only have air-to-air or rockets, so they don't even carry any ECM, and they may have something internally, not 100%. I don't know how they're modeled under DCS, but I'm sure that they had some sort of ECM. Could be wrong, but just in case, I gave them the option of use if detected or locked by radar. So when they're detected, that means that you're doing a radar sweep. So they're going to be using their ECM no matter what, and if you lock them, for sure. Again, detected. If they're not detected, they're not using it. But if you set this always use, they will always be using their ECM. Another one very important. By default, if you select this, it's going to have the value on, and what's going to happen is that they will jettison their ordnance. It's very frustrating that the moment they start turning and burning because they're being engaged, they will drop their weapons. Well, here I'm telling them, no, you're not going to drop your weapons. If you can't make that turn, you're still going to get shot down, because it really sucks that they at first engagement and they just get rid of all their ordnance, and that's it. They're a useless asset on the map. They're just targets now. And then there are other things that you can do. The en route task, nothing perform task, okay, like an attack map object. But we'll go to that next page here. Delete that. So, these guys are flying in, and you want to give them, I think with 2 nautical miles, maybe a little bit more, you need to give them space for the AI to process it. So, waypoint 2 is actually when they're going to attack this. Notice it has a little, it disappears, darn it. Okay, waypoint 2, okay. It actually has the little triangle, and it has a number 1, bombing, edit. Okay, you can give it a name if you want, and this is pretty self-explanatory. You're telling it to bomb. Weapon, in this case, I'm letting them do whatever they want. They only have rockets and their cannons, so they're going to go in with their rockets first. Attack quantity, how many attacks will they do on that site before they're done? 2. You can say group attack. With regards to the group attack, I don't know if they will like all fly together and drop. I don't think so. I haven't seen that. Other thing that's important, direction from. This is a very interesting deal here. So you see a little um, like indicator. It's like a dial. So if the target is there and you select that, this is the direction. So they'll come in from the north. If you select it and say, okay, I want you to attack from this side, yeah, they're going to attack this, but this is waypoint 2, so what does the AI have to do? It has to come around and calculate and do all kinds of weird things to say, okay, I got to attack to meet this requirement, right? To attack from this direction. Now, it's really cool to specify it to attack from a specific direction based on their flight if you want an element of surprise, all that kind of cool stuff. And for cinematics, it might work really well. Altitude above, I guess you might want to tell the AI to guarantee for a proper weapon load. Because if you bring them in too low or whatnot, the AI gets really, because it does know the weapon parameters. And you sometimes have to help it, especially within the mountains and whatnot. And then dive bombing. Again, I don't know why you would set that. I haven't used it. They will dive bomb if necessary. If anybody knows, chime in. So again, advanced waypoint actions is very, very important. They take effect when the AI crosses that waypoint. Okay. Now, if you want very specific functions, do it at the starting point, so that way they will carry it with them during the entire mission. If you want to change their behavior at any point, give them enough time to cross that waypoint, get the new, like you can add, delete AI behavior, and to make them behave at a certain way at a certain point. Okay, so artillery, triggers, all that kind of good stuff. Okay, artillery is an area, and I would recommend, like, anytime you trigger them off, anytime you trigger anything off, actually, if they're going to be sequenced, right? So you see you have 1 1 here, got 1, you got 1 1, 1 2, and 1 3. That tells me, from me, okay, my designing, I'm saying, okay, this is the first trigger. This is area 1, this is area 2, area 3. You go into the triggers. So when group 1, when that armored group column gets into group 2 activate, and notice it says part of the group. I don't know how many are going to get there. I want some of them. Oh, okay, Sledge. Yeah, you're right. I missed that. I am so sorry. Here, let's get back to the aircraft. Sledge has a good question, and I just slipped my mind. Sorry, guys. There's just so much to cover and so many different ways. Okay, so let's go to waypoint 2 again. So waypoint 2, let's move over. Boom, boom. It's yellow. And notice that you have the indicator. So get over here. It says bombing, edit, bombing. And so the object that I selected, bombing, what it does, it gives you, and you got to be careful because it kind of gets lost. Okay, notice what happened there. I selected bombing, and that white line disappears. Like, where the heck is it? Okay, you got to zoom in. Check this out. It's a stupid red line. Instead of giving you something easy to work with, no, they make it red. And it's like, guys, okay. So you see that line here? So here's your bombing, and you grab it with your left click on it, and okay, right click and hold to move the map. If you don't have it in view, keep on moving that target. Bring it over to what you want it to attack. Anywhere will do, because these are rockets. They're going to launch rockets at that area. So if you have like an area effect, just put it right about there, because it will cover at least this area. Kind of cool. You can add another one. You can add another bombing, whatnot, multiple. but I want them to concentrate just in that area because I want to leave some of them alive so that they fight back and forth, you know, with the armored column approaching. That cool? And my apologies, I missed that. Good point. Thank you. All right, so we were talking about the artillery and the first trigger that would occur if it's triggered by another unit. The cool thing about this, you can have tons of armored columns back here. So remember, I told you it's not just triggers, it's also conditions. So awesome. So what could happen is if you can set triggers, for example, that, you know, let's say group 1, 50%. So what happens is, let's see, group alive less than, and he is down to 50%. You can go in here and kick in another column that you have in the back. Think of it like your reserves, right? So these guys are being engaged, they're taking a beating or whatever. When they get 50%, boom, it automatically, the system's always checking, is this guy at 50% or less? Oh yeah, he is. Boom, and over here, new, activate, you know, another group that you might have here, or have another group over here, or whatever. You can do any conditions that you want. So you can have wave after wave after wave of stuff happening based on, you know, conditions as the mission evolves. Like I could make, you know, this is where the defeat zone, right? That's what I called it. The defeat zone, which is red, I just colored it red so I understand, okay, where they're supposed to reach, and here's the destination point for all the columns. And basically what it's saying is part of the group, armored column group 1, and then it says or, don't forget the or, number 2, because if you do and, both of those armored columns have to reach there. In this case, it's pretty tough because that means any of those guys reaches here, that's it, the Allies lose. If I say and, it gives them a little bit more breather because, okay, column 1 got there, but column 2 got destroyed. It doesn't meet that and condition, so no defeat. And basically how I finish the mission is I just, when the winner is the red, and the text that is displayed to everybody, it says pull back, all Allied forces, and that would kind of open up to, if I were to do a campaign, which I really don't know how to do, but I'm interested in learning, would tie into like battle for Batumi, you know, and you could have a battle way further down because they're supposed to go way down here. Everything is lost. Caboletti's probably within artillery range, you know, who knows, whatever. Okay, so the artillery. Notice what happens. Shelling zone. Shelling zone is actually an action. Okay. Now the shelling zone. Well, it says I need a zone. What zone do you want to fire? Now you can clone these, so you can just write it once. You clone and then just change it, right? Whatever variable it is. So the first one, my zone is 1-1. That's why I named them. 1-1, 1-2, and 1-3. Max TNT equivalent is 500, and that is the maximum that you can do. And then the shell count per zone. You can specify how many shells or how many explosions are going to happen within that zone. And it's pretty cool. A lot of folks saw the effects. By the way, anything that's in that zone, so if an armored column is going through there, let's say he was over here when it's going off, and a shell lands on them, it will cause damage. It will cause damage to the terrain. You will see buildings catch on fire and whatnot. So it's pretty interesting. And if shells fall within water, you get those nice water splash plumes, you know, so it gives that visual feedback to the players. You know, you're seeing, hey, there's artillery going on, you know, boom, boom, boom. It's pretty cool. Okay, so notice that I also set artillery, RD2 barrage, RD3, and 4. Those are just artillery. So 2, RD2, let's see, where did I put 2? Here it is, 2-1 and 2-2. So what does that mean? Well, we got group call him Group 3. So it's the guy that's coming in through here. When they come in through this zone, they activate this artillery. Now the players don't know. All the players see is that, hey, we got a column over there, and they see explosions, right? So maybe there was a forward observer here somewhere, and he sees a tank, and they're just, you know, doing area fire to try to hit them, whatnot. It's just, again, it's just to add to the atmosphere. But you can damage stuff with it as well. I mean, I can move this 2 and bring it, you know, right on them if I wanted to. I mean, it's up to you, however you want to do it. If you want to help the players, maybe you want to say, hey, you know, these guys, if they got to this point, they have a great chance, so you might put an artillery barrage right on them. And, you know, I really like that ED added that, because before what I used to do was I would spawn like a MLRS or artillery back here, like paladins, and turn their AI on, and when they became active, you can tell them, okay, fire at this area and cause X amount of damage. Okay, you can do that with any ships too. So watch this. Okay, so we'll grab a ship. Okay, let's go with Ticonderogas. Those are always fun. Okay, doesn't matter what you want to give them. Okay, so they're heading that way. So waypoint. Oops, sorry. Yeah. Add that. Okay, cool. Advanced waypoint. So, very beginning. Notice that. Perform task. Fire at point or attack group. So let's say that they're going to attack a group. Let's say you want to add a shipborne element support, right? Hit the attack group. Group, right now by default, it's nothing. But you can say, hey, I'm going to help them out and hit group 4. What weapon? Well, I seriously doubt their cannons can reach that far. So we're going to do cruise missiles. Okay. Release quantity. You can do all of them. I have never done that with a CG, but it could be interesting. I do this. I go boom, and then I say maybe 24 missiles. And what will happen is when the mission starts, as the boat starts moving forward, you're going to start seeing the tomahawks being launched one by one. Okay. And they'll be engaging that group 4 if it's alive, meaning if it's active, because if it's not there, because remember it's not going to be activated yet, it won't shoot. But when group 4 shows up, the cruiser's going to launch 24 missiles in support. The other thing that you can do is fire at point. This does something similar. Notice that a line came out. Okay. Follow it, find out where it's at. I think it's going to group 4. No, it's not. Even worse. So you got to find that little triangle. Okay, I don't understand why they do that. So, anyways, there is group fire at point. So again, left click and hold to move it. Right click and hold at the same time to move the map. So let's say that fire at point in support, and they're going to aim for this thing. So you just put the target right there. Here's a cool part. Zone radius. Right now, 0 is just that little squat. Okay, well, let's do 500. Or even a 2500. That's too big, in my opinion. 500, 1000 is pretty cool. And what happens with that, what weapon? It says auto, so the AI will automatically correct coordinate. Yep, it works perfectly. You can do artillery barrages from ships against shore-based stuff, and they'll open up with their cannons. And what's really cool is if you leave it auto, the AI will say, well, I'm a ship, I'm too far away to use cannons, I don't have rockets, so I'm just going to use my guided missiles, right? So they'll use cruise missiles, and they'll launch cruise missiles to the number of rounds expended that you specify. Obviously, if they're closer in and you select cannons and only 10, they'll only lob 10 shells. But you can say, okay, 150. I don't even know how many a CG can carry. Probably more than 500 rounds, I'm sure. I think. Anyways, and what will happen is that they will shoot within this area. So you'll get, explosions every so often going in there, and if there is armor in that area and they take a hit, they will take damage. So it's pretty cool if you want to add that. Let's delete that and delete the ship. We're on the first one, delete. He will not delete, sorry. So as you can see, when you go for that map, that stupid line was out in the middle of nowhere. It's like, dude, really? Okay, we'll delete that ship. Okay. So that's how you get that artillery effect. There are other things that you can do with those areas. Artillery barrage. Now it says RD21, right? RD21 there. Let's say new. You can actually do, for example, set the illuminating bomb, just like I did on those markers. You can, there was another one that used to work very well. Explosion. See how it says zone? So we actually want to do it in 2-1. So we're specifying we want that to happen here. It says altitude, so like let's say 250, and volume, I can't remember what the maximum is. Put a maximum and then click away from it. It will do it. 10,000 is the maximum. So the last time I played around with this, they actually neutered the crap out of it. It used to form, you would see an explosion, right? It wasn't nuclear type explosion, but you would see an explosion type thing. I think they toned it down from what I've read on the forums because it was a frame rate killer. And I think you could yeah, it was a frame rate killer. So they toned it down. And I think the only thing it does now, from what I played around the last time, at the altitude that you specified, all you get is this little like puff of smoke, and it's like, what was that? Nothing happens. I don't see anything happen. You guys are more than welcome to test it out further. Then you can set, sound, all this stuff. This is pretty cool. I've been reading about it. You can control what the players can do inside the cockpit. You can send radio transmission, but you can deactivate controls, and that's actually how they do the training scenarios. So open up one of those, and you'll see how it's utilized. All right, let's see what else we got here. Group activate. Group activate is how you activate the delayed activated units. If you have a trigger and you want them to start acting, make sure you use group activate. The other one that they do also is group AI on. The other thing is, so if you have I haven't played too much around with it. Let's see, where's it at? But my understanding is that you can also have like a surface-to-air missile installation, and instead of having them be emitting, you can have them shut down. So you can play around with that. You can put a trigger around it. So like for example, somebody comes in with a harm, they launch a harm, and it goes through that trigger. It will simulate like the SAM saying, "Hey, they just launched an anti-radiation missile at me, so I'm going to shut down." And I think it's called emission on, emission off, and you specify it by let's see, I think it's here, type. Gosh, I wish it was more specific, but it's buried in there somewhere. And basically you can play around with that and get very, very creative. Dead zone, I don't even know what a dead zone is. Interesting. That's the first time I've really noticed it. Anyways, let's see, what else do we got to cover? So when I designed this mission, I wanted to give like a Fulda Gap scenario, Europe, 1985. Here you have the Rhine River, let's say, whatever, and you have armored columns inbound. You want to keep them to the roads. In this case, you can actually have them go through here, but this is a pathfinding nightmare for the AI. They just updated the code. I think the last update they did was actually to address this, because the AI would like go up to a building and just stop. And it's like it doesn't go around it because it doesn't know how to get around it. So they've been fixing it. So if you can avoid dense forest like that, it's always a good idea. Get them around it. Help the AI, reach the objectives. The other thing is when the AI is moving along, here's waypoint 3 for that unit. You can advanced waypoint. You can say, hey, let's see what else we got. Fire at this part. Boom, and they'll open up against that. It's same thing, sledge, just like bombing. You can say fire at this point. Boom, you see that? It drew out the triangle. Left click on it, move it around to what you want them to fire at. Right click on and hold on to move the map around. So if you just wanted for giggles and grins, right, just add tracer fire or whatnot. So when they get to this part, do this, and again, you can specify the radius, how much of an area you want them to fire at. So 500 is obscene, but you can see the red circle here. Weapon, anything that they have, or just cannons, or whatever I leave them on auto, or rounds expended. Specify how much you want them to fire, and it could be like, let's say they roll into a town and they just start ripping up on the buildings, right? So you designate different targets, and from the air, all you'll see is just tracer fire going back and forth. You can do a lot of special effects that way, get the armored columns shooting at each other or whatever. You can explicitly say, do this. Okay, set route, they have nothing. Perform command. Okay, here's where you would run a script. Don't do that. Here's a run a little file script. I'm sure that Setlo is more knowledgeable about all that. Set call sign. Again, I don't know how that would kick in. All these are still a mystery to me. Set the frequency. I don't know why an armored column would have a frequency. Maybe it is for combined arms, I'm thinking. And look at that. Even tell you the wattage. So it's you can set a real weak signal or a strong signal. Transmit message. Stop the transmission. Make the unit immortal. Maybe you need to get them through a certain area and you don't want them to die. You set them immortal for a while, and then once they get to the next waypoint, you take that away. Again, that's up to you and your mission objectives. So I wanted to design that folded gap type deal, and so I looked at the map. I usually like this area is really fun. You get rolling hills, you got plenty of urban environment, good visibility, and let's see. So the objective was to capture Kutaisi. Now Kutaisi was destroyed in an airstrike, so players can't take off of there, obviously. This is all the smoke and fires that you see out there. That is done with the static menu, and see, by default it's called damage. It'll grab whatever color of the country that you select. It doesn't matter if it's US, it's on the blue side, obviously. Russia's on the red side in this case. So when you put an effect, see it says effect. Sledge says you could use this. Yep, that's true. That you could probably set that. Correct. I haven't played with that, so it's very, very plausible. Categories, effect. I remember finding this out actually right when the Hornet module came out, so it's been over a year now. I started making my designs that way, and it's like, and I always said, it's adding ambiance, guys. It's just giving the feel, So that was the first time I put in, fires and smoke and whatnot, and it was actually pretty cool. So like here you have this. Okay, let's click on one, right? By the way, you can click on one, Control C to copy, and get this. Control V, boom, 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 boom. Makes it a lot easier. So again, you like huge smoke and fire, mark it so it's white, Control C, and then Control V to add more flavor. You can make them huge, just smoke, medium smoke and fire, that kind of stuff, you know, whatever. Density is the density of the plume of smoke. So if you go lower, yeah, 0 obviously is worthless. 0.1 I've never seen. Probably looks like a chimney. So if you don't want them too dense, you can play around with that. So maybe a fire that's just now burning, it's more intense, thicker plume of smoke. Fires that have been burning for a while, you make them, you know, lighter. Um, so it depends on what you want to do, right? So you might create one with, let's say, half, right? And make them, I don't know, me medium smoke and fire, right? And let's click on here. Oops, that's what he is. Okay, cool. So Control C, and now these fires over here are going to be much different. And if you click on them, they keep the value that you gave them. Okay. Let's see what else. Yeah, then you have effects. You have all kinds of stuff. Some of these I haven't gotten to work, by the way. The dust and smoke, and by default they're already named that for you. Test 1, 2, and 3. Notice that. So maybe it's something for the future that ED has planned for. I don't know. And notice also that it says linked to a unit. You can actually link it to a unit. Interesting. Don't know. Then you have a smoking line. Again, they have them named test 1, 2, and 3. I've used all three of them. I haven't gotten the results. It says course. I would assume it would be the direction that the smoke would occur. How long in meters that smoke line is, and the density, which would be like the smoke, you know, how dense the smoke is. And you can link it to a unit. Again, I have not gotten it to work. Um, then you got the smoky marker. There, test 1, 2, and 3 with no other variables except linking to a unit, whatever, and I have no idea. Because smoky marker, you would do it with, like I did here, smoke marker, and you give it a color, you give it the altitude at which it pops. In this case, it was right above the bridge. So I don't know what that smoky marker is under statics. I have not, you know, seen it work. And then this is just your static objects. Now the static objects, see, there was some issue with static objects, and actually we were talking about that yesterday on Discord, and we were chatting back and forth. There was something about them that didn't work well. And I was designing a mission where you had to go in and hit a like a nuclear reactor site, and there was something with it that I placed it, and it was either not visible. I think it wasn't visible. Didn't have labels. That's it. They don't have labels also, so it's very hard to spot them. They'll just be, if you put them amongst buildings or whatnot, it'll just be something else amongst the buildings. So if you put like bunkers, let's see here, ground, where is it at? Structures, people, that's fun. Okay, barracks, okay, whatever you put in there. If you put this in there, it's just going to be another object amongst all the other objects. And it won't have a label, meaning it won't have a dot, so people won't be able to see it. Now, if you take a screenshot of that, post it in the mission, right over here in the mission briefing, and then people actually see what it looks like, then maybe they say, oh, okay, I know what I'm looking for. But that kind of makes it difficult for them. Keep it simple, right? Okay, okay, we're coming up in an hour and a half, and I plan to cut it off at an hour and a half, so it's been good. So again, a couple tips. Write down what you want to do. Make an outline. I really recommend, if you want to make a mission, think of what you want to do, what you want to accomplish with, what you'd like to see in the mission, right? So jot it down, and you know what? Put the player aircraft at the very, very end. Don't worry about what the players. Yeah, in this case, I knew it was going to be a cast mission and kind of what the aircraft were going to be, but that was I did not place them in their airfield until the very end. When I was adding, some air defenses around it, because I was actually going to have enemy airstrikes go in and hit the air bases to give you a little bit of a, you know, ambiance, as I like to say. Um, because then once you put everything in order, your story, okay, then when you put the friendly aircraft, then you can put their waypoints. That's when you build the waypoints. That's when you say, okay, this is going to be your IP, okay, your initial point. Um, Buried in here is your CAS area. How do you write that? That you write right here, sorry. So the waypoint, see the waypoint, and you can type in anything you want. Notice how I named my group, and they're the UK, even though they're called USMC. That's my bad. I was thinking other ways, but I added the UK. Why? Because I have that camo schema that I wanted them to use. It looks really cool, classic winter. Um, so the group is named, the individual in that flight is named. Why? Because I could also make conditions like if the enemy aircraft or a player aircraft in particular gets shot down, something could happen, right? I'm just giving myself that option. That way you know about it. So one is Group 1, Aircraft 1, okay? So in the other flight, for example, it would be Group 2, Plane 1, so Harrier 2-1. So you know that he is part of Group 2, he's Aircraft 1, okay? And that's their camo. Um, yeah, very important to name, and it can become tedious after a while because everything you put in there, you gotta, oh shoot, like the area defenses, not so big. I mean, you're gonna name them, but each individual unit, who cares, right? Because these are expendable. These guys are gonna blow up. I don't care. Let them just blow up. But specific units in here, maybe you want to name them. Um, Maybe, like for example, okay, check this out. Fighter group. This is the MiG-29 flight. Okay, starting point. Notice that they're just doing cap. At waypoint 2 is when I actually set their values. Don't remember why I did it that way, but it still works. Now check this out. Search, then engage in zone. And notice that there is a line coming out. Search, then engage in zone. And you specify the zone area in feet. Check for all this stuff. Whatever they find, they're going to shoot. Okay? Weapons free. And then you get all the good stuff. Reaction to threat, radar using, what they're going to be doing, so on and so forth. So, again, you can also specify in this area, instead of search for zone, you can say, hey, I want you to search, then engage group. And what's going to happen is I want them to go after USMC Group Harrier 1. And it will automatically draw out the line way over here. Where does it live? Right over here. So if these guys are flying around in here, and when these guys spawn, they know I have to look for this guy. And that's the only flight that this Russian group is going to engage. So you can make a bunch of players really upset. They're going to say, hey, why are they always shooting at me? And we're like, well, you chose the wrong flight, So yeah, you can do that too. You can do anything you want. You can then set, another waypoint further up here, and then you change the AI behavior. It's up to you. So tell the story. First, write it down. Tell the story. What is it that you want to do? What do you want? This isn't complicated. It just takes time. And I would also recommend every so often create what I call a mission reconnaissance flight. Just put an aircraft flying around to see how it looks from the air. And within the game, you can actually speed up time. I can't remember if it's Control Z. I think it's Control Z. Well, just look it up in the command deal. And you can speed up time, and you'll see these guys move faster. and then when they hit the marker, you'll see the explosions and so on and so forth. And you just observe, just watch. And when you see that something's not panning out exactly, um, you can go back into the mission editor and change it. So, okay, so I'm winding it down. I really appreciate your time. I hope that I introduced you to new stuff. I hope that maybe the new stuff triggered a spark and said, hey, now I can do that. Oh, that's really cool. I'm always happy to answer questions. The other thing that I would like to do maybe in the future is maybe you know design a mission together, right? So maybe I do a live stream and we all come up with ideas, and as I'm placing it on the map or whatever, oh, this would be cool if, other ideas. I don't know, a collaborative approach. Then the other thing is I'm going to be designing another mission, and Bigfoot's going to be adding all the helicopter stuff. He really knows that really well, so I was thinking maybe he could do a quick how-to on how to do that aspect, because I'd like to learn, and it'd be something that we could share with everybody. Um, and then I think I covered, again, you learn by doing in this. So just hit the mission editor, maybe even make a half of a mission like this. Uh, Make it real simple, make it fun. Remember, the key is, let's see, what is that? You would use, okay, sorry, I'm going back to Sledge. Sorry, is that something the Game Master option is for? Remind me what the Game Master option was for. What were we talking about? Can't remember. I'll talk to you offline on Discord. No problem. And then finally, just keep practicing. Just make missions. Remember, you're telling a story. You want the players to have fun. Last night mission actually panned out, an hour and a half I think it was, and we managed to destroy everything, and victory, we won, right? So it was fun. It was getting darker inside the mission because it was taking almost 2 hours. It started at 5 o'clock in the evening. The sun was setting. Everything was changing. So it was really cool, and everybody walked away from it saying, with an experience, hey, I remember that mission when this happened, right? That's what you want to get to when you make a mission. So, and by all means, when you create a mission, share it with everybody, and put it in the mission repository in Discord if you want to. If not, put it in the DCS file section, uh, and just share it with everybody, because everybody can learn from the missions. I like to grab a mission if I can, and I like to dissect and say, okay, what did they do and how did they do that? The scripting, I just don't know. If anybody knows about scripting, by all means do a how-to like I've done, either live or whatever. Yeah, challenging mission, but very, very fun. Yeah, exactly. And Hornet Driver had fun too. So awesome. And all right, guys. So thanks a lot for your time. This will be recorded, so obviously you'll be able to view it later. And I hope it was worthwhile. I hope it set off a spark, and get to mission designing and have fun. And that's the only way DCS is going to grow, and the only way that we at Wingman Finder are going to grow, to have more missions to try out. So I'll talk to you guys on Discord, and I'll make the mission available to everybody so everybody can play around with it, and maybe expand from here, and have fun. All right. Thanks, guys. Signing off. Bye.